Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. In this video, I'm going to be planting 3 Camellia Sasanquas from the Southern Living Plant Collection. I had planted a few of these varieties on the other side of my house in the fall, and they did beautifully through a very cold winter. Camellias are one of my favorite plants. People in the nursery business and garden center businesses can tell you that we really appreciate things that bloom in the fall and in the winter and the really early spring. Before we get so busy we can't really enjoy them at all and have just zero time to enjoy them. And so that's one of my great appreciations of camellias is Camellia Sasanquas like this are fall blooming in my area. They'll start blooming in October, late October, and bloom in November and December, and sometimes right through Christmas, depending on how early it gets cold. Camellia japonicas, they typically will start after that. In my area, the southeast United States, they'll start after Christmas and bloom into the early spring. So having them both will really extend the period of time that you have flowers. I had moved this Yuletide Camellia, which is a Sasanqua, up here to this corner in another video a couple weeks ago on transplanting a large shrub, I think is the name of that video. And I'm gonna plant these 3 around it. These are absolutely beautiful 5-gallon camellias right here. These just have such fantastic foliage, really super dark green foliage. They really don't need to flower. I've always said that about camellias. The flowers are kind of a bonus on camellias. The foliage is just perfect. It's holly-like. They grow super slow. So, you know, if you're trying to use them as a screen, it probably would be a really frustrating thing to get a screening plant out of a camellia unless you started with a very large plant, which would probably be fairly pricey because they're also slow growing even in the nurseries. They tend to come out in the spring and put on some really rapid growth, and it looks like they're fast growing, and then as soon as it's really hot, boom, they're done. And then they start to develop the flower buds for the fall at that point. I have a clay-based soil, so I always plant my camellias, azaleas, rhododendrons, lots and lots of plants. I really need to mound them up a little bit and make sure that they're draining well. These do not like to sit in water at all, and you really can't force a lot of growth on them. So a light fertilization every early spring and a little light pruning at that time would be fine as well on Camellia Sasanquas. That would give them plenty of time to flush back out and set their flower buds in the early to mid-summer for the fall. This variety is called October Magic Orchid, and the 2 over here are called Alabama Beauty. This one's kind of a solid pink, and that October Magic Orchid is like a variegated flower. It's pink on the outside and white on the center. But you can see how beautiful these pieces actually are. If you were gonna, what is the plant of the South? If I asked that question, I'd probably get gardenias would be the answer from some people. I think we'd hear magnolias. Evergreen magnolias would definitely be on people's list. Maybe crepe myrtles. Crepe myrtles would certainly be on people's list. And I really think that it's camellias. I think that you know, old southern homes with camellias planted around them are always just so beautiful at the times of year when they're in bloom. These are super low maintenance plants. They're slow growing, so they don't require a heck of a lot of pruning. They don't really get any insect or disease problems. They are susceptible to a tea scale. Camellias are in the tea family. Camellia sinensis is a tea that you drink. So being in the Camellia family, they are susceptible to that tea scale. It's not that big of a deal. I've had plants covered in tea scale and they're still blooming and still growing. It attaches itself to the back of the leaf. These are clean here, and most of the time stay clean in the landscape. It's not that big of a deal, but it is something that they are susceptible to. Other than that, I just don't worry about camellias. As long as I don't sink them too deep and overwater them, they're just not any problem. I'm going to go ahead and put these in the ground. I have a clay-based soil, so I'll raise them up, add a little pine bark soil conditioner. If you can't find pine bark soil conditioner, a chunkier compost will work if you have a clay soil. If you have a sandy soil, well-draining soil, you can plant these pretty much flush and use some compost in the hole when you plant them. And I'll mulch them. This is a hardwood mulch around my feet here. I'll make sure I pull that back so none of that ends up in the hole. And when they go in the ground, the mulch will get pulled back up to them, but not covering anything that's not covered already. And like I say, they're going to go up here around this Yuletide Camellia. So they're in the ground. I actually ended up using a little compost on these. There's just a little more sand up here in my yard than the rest, so I didn't use a pine bark soil conditioner. They're lightly mulched at the base. I actually need to get some more mulch up here. There's the one that was transplanted, and there is the variegated one over there. This is going to make a beautiful evergreen backdrop. Not the fastest growing thing in the world, and that's no big deal. One thing I neglected to say during the other part of the video was camellias are really part shade plants. Camellia japonicas can go in deeper shade. Camellia Sasanquas like this one are definitely more sun tolerant. You know, they can probably take 4 or 6 hours of direct sun every day and be much, much more tolerant of it than Camellia japonicas. Ideally, they would both like to be in a place where they're going to get some morning sun and some afternoon shade, and that's what I've got going on here. This is the west over here, so that wood line over there is going to shade them out after they get a good amount of morning and early midday sun. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll keep you up to date on how these are doing and show you the flowers in the fall. Thanks again for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for future videos.